why is being a teenager so good? The teenage years are some of the best years to be alive, and here's why. Everything is new. There's so many firsts. I remember the first time I went on a roller coaster. Maybe you can remember the first time you went on a roller coaster. How did it feel? For most of us, it was incredible. At the age of 12, 13, or 14, what was the first thing we did when we came off the roller coaster? We got back on. And then we got back on again and again and again. And I realized this when I took my boys to Disneyland. And after they got off the roller coaster, they went on again and again and again. And it wore me out. But for them, it was the best thing ever. So roller coasters aren't the only new things. Teenagers, for the first time, get to do a lot of new things. And there's so much energy and vibrancy to these first things like driving. The first time they drive a car, get their driver's license, they're excited, nervous. There's kind of a thrill to the whole thing. The first time they go to prom, they ask someone to prom. They go to prom. They rent a limo, a tux, a dress. It's exciting and it's new. They play in their first high school basketball game or perform in their first spring musical. It's all new and exciting. Then there's the first kiss, the first date, the first time you travel alone to somewhere. And there's a lot more firsts. With all these firsts, their eyes get open, bigger and bigger, and the world gets bigger and bigger. So everything is new for teens, and that's exciting. The second thing is teens are not afraid to take risks. They're willing to try to do new things, and they do new things. Partly because they don't understand the danger. They've experienced a little bit of failure, but not enough to understand what they're really putting themselves into. So they have this youthful innocence, which is a blessing. It's also a curse. But it's a blessing because they're not inhibited. They want to do new things. They want to take risks, whereas maybe adults are a little bit more inhibited. They don't want to look silly, and they just don't take as many risks sometimes. Teens do have fears, and they're real fears, and we'll get to those in another segment. But the second point is they're not afraid to take risks. Thirdly, teens have so much energy. It's amazing. One year I was tasked to drive a group to Disneyland, and in my van, it was kind of random. I had 7 girls drop into my van for grad night. And so we happened to leave LA at about 2 p.m. So a normal 45-minute drive in rush hour traffic took 2.5 hours. And by the time I reached Disneyland, the parking lot at Disneyland, I was spent. All 7 girls talked the entire drive nonstop. I don't think any of them took a breath. They talked over each other. It was constant giggling, talking, laughing for 2.5 hours. I was exhausted. They were ready to go. They had so much energy. I remember another time I took 21 boys to summer camp. It was just me counseling 21 boys. We had a blast. We got up early, went to breakfast, had a full day. The pool, the game room, ropes course, hiking, horseback riding, everything you can imagine into the evening, campfire, and s'mores. By about midnight, I was spent and ready to go to bed, and they were just getting started. They wanted to stay up. In fact, I had to sleep in front of the door to prevent them from going out in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning, to do pranks and other things. They just had nonstop energy. So teens have energy. They're also extremely curious. They ask great questions. They wonder about the world. And their curiosity is unique. They want to know things. They have a desire to know and to learn that's insatiable. And there's something about teens, that curiosity that's different than when you're adults. Then you kind of become more pessimistic and you think you've learned enough and you stop asking questions. Teens ask very big questions. They develop worldviews. They develop approaches to life. They cement their personality in the teenage years. You know, teenagers, it's like dress rehearsal for opening night. It's practice. It's not real life quite yet. It is real life, but it's not quite real life. It's practice. It's dress rehearsal for opening night. The pressure is a bit off. Teens can live a little more unencumbered. Most of them don't have to pay bills or care for sick parents or hold down a full-time job. The burdens of life are just a little bit farther away. They get a number of mulligans and a long list of do-overs, and they should take advantage of that. I remember doing that when I was in high school. Just understand that you're not quite an adult. You have a little more time left to grow and to mature, to get ready. And so that dress rehearsal is a little bit different than being an adult. The stakes are lower at 16 than they are at 42. If a 17-year-old junior punches his friend in the face, he goes to the principal's office. If a 19-year-old college freshman does the same thing, he goes to jail. There's a difference between adolescent years of practice, of making mistakes, of going to the principal and saying, hey, please don't do that again. Here's the consequence. But in the future, the stakes are higher. Many of us look at the teenage years as a problem or a burden. It is true that the teenage years are filled with pitfalls. It is true that teenagers, especially boys, can be complete knuckleheads. Most of them will look back at pictures from their high school years and say, dear God, what was I wearing? Or why did I dye my hair that color? The teenage years are a battle rife with fears and a host of problems. There are real dangers to highlight and to press into. However, they are great years, filled with hope, filled with promise, and filled with joy. Our view of teens is important. Are they a headache or a blessing? We need to view them as a gift. The reason I went into education and chose high school was because I loved being in high school. I had a great experience. The day I graduated, I kissed the ground. After all, my high school years were great, and it was holy ground. Not all my peers felt the same way. A lot of them couldn't wait to leave high school. But I had a great time. I reminisced. I thought about those years as something special. They're not the only years, and they're not necessarily the most important years, but they are special years. And we need to understand that teenagers and teenage life is good, not bad. There's a quest that happens from ages 13 to 19 that's important. And as adults, we get to dive into it.